Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gede Arjana. On behalf of my colleague, Professor Dr. Wayan Suastra, I would like to present our previous research entitled Scientific Approach Integrated Local Wisdom Content as a physics learning designed to enhance the student critical thinking and problem-solving skills. First of all, I would like to give the brief explanation about the outline regarding the things that I would like to present in my talk. The first one, it will be start by giving you some introduction, the study background behind our study, and then followed by the method that has been used in our research. I will also show some results and discussion pertaining the implementation of the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content in the physics learning process. And for the last, I will give the conclusion that has been found in our study. In the era of globalizations, the development in all aspects of life is no longer negotiable. The rapid development of the science and technology requires every nation in order to be able to utilize its potential resources to be able to survive and also be able to compete with other countries. In order to face the future life challenges, every nation requires the 5 mind of futures, which consists of discipline mind, synthesizing mind, creating mind, respecting mind, and ethical mind. Furthermore, the globalizations can be resisted by giving our human resources with the ability to think, especially the higher order thinking skill. The science education as the part of the part in education of Indonesia has a great potential to help the student to enhance their high order thinking skill. The implementation of the science education in the school enables students to develop their scientific attitude as well as their thinking skill. The science education also guide our students to develop their practical skills, which is really useful to help the student in solving the problems in real life. Despite some various effort that has been done by our government to give the quality, to give the best quality in our human resources, some studies still shows that the low quality of our human resources in Indonesia. The studies done by the Trend International in Mathematics and Science shows that Indonesia is ranked 36 out of 49 countries in the world on the average value of the science in the cognitive domain. Indonesia is also obtained scores only 425, 426, and 438 for the knowing, applying, and reasoning ability as respectively. Another study is done by the United Nations for Development Program. Indonesia is ranked 121st among the countries in the world for the Human Development Index. There is also another studies done by the Organization for Economic and Cooperation Development, shows that Indonesia's position ranked 96 out of 76 countries for science skills based on the category for 15 years old student. The low cognitive reasoning ability shows by these previous studies give the impact for a student to have like a low problem solving skill and the critical thinking skill when they enter the higher educational level of study. For example, like the study shows by the Aziza et al. In 2015, shows that the 76% of the senior high school students experience some difficulties in learning physics due to the lack of their problem solving skills. There is also another studies done by the Sadia revealed that the critical thinking skill of the student in the junior and senior high school in the province of Bali were still relatively low. In order to help the student having like the problem solving skill, high problem solving skill, our government has implemented the new curriculum that is the 2030 curriculum. This 2030 curriculum emphasizes the use of the scientific approach in the learning process, and it requires the teachers to balance the assessment of the students' learning outcome, which include the competency attitudes, knowledge and skill through the authentic assessment. In order to make the scientific approach more meaningful for the student, The implementation of the local wisdom content or the local wisdom culture is really useful to be integrated in the learning process. The local wisdom culture, which is referred as the indigenous science that has already lived in our life, can be used as the media and learning model to stimulate, motivate, and help students construct the new knowledge. In its implementation in the learning process, this local wisdom will help students to connect and assimilate the new physics concept they learn into their prior knowledge. So by knowing the usefulness of this local wisdom content, we would like to see the effectiveness of the scientific approach integrated with the local wisdom content in helping the student to improve their problem solving skill and critical thinking skill in the physics learning process. Our study was a quasi-experiment with the post-test only control group designs. There are two variables that we use in this research, the independent and the dependent variable. The independent variable was the learning models, and the independent variable were the problem solving and critical thinking skill. The participants of these studies consists of 220 11th grade students of SMA Negeri 4 Singaraja in the even semester of academic year 2018 and 2016. Based on the population characteristic in which all classes of the populations are equal, two samples were then chosen by random sampling techniques from the existing classes as the experimental group where the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content will be used as the treatment for this experimental group, and the other one is as the control group when the conventional learning process will be used in this group. Its group consisted of 30 students. The data that has been found in this research were collected using the critical thinking and problem solving skill tests. All the instruments used in the study has made the valid and high requirement. The data were again analyzed through the descriptive statistic and factorial analysis with the 5% significance level. In our study, we found that the average score of the critical thinking students, of the critical thinking skills of the student were 66, which is in the fair category for the students who learn with the scientific approach, integrated local wisdom content. While in the control group, where the student learn in the conventional way, they only obtain 55, and it is in the poor category. For the terms of the problem solving skill, the average score for the experimental group were 55 in the fair category, and the control group was only 34, and the score is in the poor category. We also found that the 43% of the students in the experimental group achieve critical thinking scores in the good category, and 50% are in the good and fair categories for problem skills. Whereas in the control group, most of the students got scores in the poor and bad category respectively for the critical thinking skill and problem solving skill. In our study, we also analyzed the data that we got to testing our hypothesis. Before to testing the hypothesis, we used the Manava test. Before that, all the scores that has been found by using the instrument for the problem solving and critical thinking test will be tested. The normally will pass through some initial tests like the normality, homogeneity, and the intercorrelation test. From the normality test, we found that the data distribution of the scores of the students' critical thinking and problem solving skill for both group in experimental and control group are normally distributed. We also checked the homogeneity of the scores and the data that we got in both groups, and the homogeneity of variance data in both groups are homogeneous. The test for the intercorrelations of the data that we found shows that the intercorrelation between the dependent variables are entirely below 0.8. That means that there is no strong correlation between critical thinking and problem solving skill. Thus, all the requirement that is needed to do the Manava test has been made. To testing the hypothesis, we use the Manava test, and this is the results shown in the table 5. From this result, we can see that the value f, which is equal to 13.816 with the significant value which is less than 0.05, indicates that there is a significant difference of critical thinking skill between the group of students who learn with the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content and those who learn through the conventional learning models. And the value of the f is equal to 32.777 with the significant value less than 0.05, meaning that the problem solving skills between the student who learn through the learning model with the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content is significantly different with those who learn through the conventional learning model. From these results, we can see that the student who learned through the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content get the better and higher achievement in the learning process of in the class. The process of integrating scientific-based learning approach with the local wisdom content help the students to understand the concept more easily. This is due to the delivery of content via local wisdom content give them more real visualization. The presentation of physics content via these local cultures make the students become more enthusiastic in participating in the learning process. The use of the local-based contents media facilitate also the student to get an image of how the concept, especially in physics process, is applied directly in real-life phenomena that are and they are familiar with it, so it makes the process of learning physics in the classroom more enjoyable. The integration of local cultures or wisdom into the learning media facilitated the teachers in presenting and transferring physics concept consisting some mathematical equation more manageably. Even though the critical thinking and problem solving skill of the student who learn with the scientific approach integrated learning, integrated local wisdom content were better than those who obtained by students who learn through the conventional learning model. However, the results were still not optimal. There are several results why the result is not so optimal. The first one is the lacking of positive habit of the student to be active during the learning process. Maybe this reasons because the students already get used to with the situations when they learn with the conventional learning model. So they already have this habit not to be really active when they are engaged in the learning process. The second reason is because the limit of the classroom time, which tend to make it difficult to conduct the whole learning process optimally. And the last reason is because the difficulty in relating the local wisdom which were relevant to the material of the learning topic, especially one which consists of some abstract concept. So not all the contents in the physics can be related to the local wisdom. There are some abstract explanation of the physics concept, which is really hard to find the good local wisdom cultures that can be integrated to the learning process. So for the last, the conclusion that we can be drawn from our studies that there is a simultaneous difference in critical thinking and problem solving skill between the student who learn through the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content and with those who learn with the conventional learning model. The average score of the critical thinking and problem solving skill of the student who learn with the scientific approach integrated local wisdom content were better than those who obtained by the student who learned through the conventional learning model. And we also draw the conclusion about some obstacles found in the implementation of this learning model with the scientific approach, integrated local wisdom content. The first one is because the lacking ability of the positive habit of the student to be more actively engaged in the learning process, and the limit of the classroom time, which is tend to make it difficult to conduct the whole learning process optimally. And the last is the difficulty in relating the local wisdom content, which is very relevant to the learning material. Okay, I think that's all that I can give for my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Goodbye.